Welcome to our second episode on Kindle Vella and our interview with Vella author Crystal Crawford. Today we're going to talk about analytics and promoting your Kindle Vella serial. Let's engage.
Take your seat. The human adventure is just beginning.
Hi, Crystal. Welcome back. And we're glad to be here again talking to you about your Kindle Vella series, Macchiatos, Fairy Princes, and Other Things That Happen at Midnight, the Leyward Stories Season 1. And last episode, we talked about the idea of how Kindle Vella even works and how you got involved with it, how you make money doing it, how readers interact with it, and how they pay for stories. This time, what I'd like to do is I'd like to cover some ground talking about how you grow this for yourself. So you're out there, you're publishing stories. You've even been in the top 100 of Kindle Vella stories. And how do you essentially keep this growing? How do you invest in social media, in advertising? Does Amazon have advertising? Do you do stuff on Facebook? Let's talk about all those kinds of things. So welcome again to the DreamForge channel. And how do you promote on Kindle Vella?
So my primary mode of promotion is Facebook ads. I was reluctant to start at first because I didn't want to spend the money. But the first few months that I made a bonus on Kindle Vella, I made it without ads. And I realized the potential there, and I wanted to reinvest that. So I started talking to other Kindle Vella authors who had been successful with Facebook ads. Some of them were really, really helpful and really nice about sharing what they had learned with me. And then my husband is also a marketer. He does social media marketing. But books and serials are not his specialty. And of course, ads have to be tailored to the audience. But I kind of took what I learned from other authors who were doing it well, and then what my husband taught me about the mechanics of Facebook ads. And I started diving in and just tweaking and experimenting until I found something that worked. I also have, obviously, social media pages. So I post teasers every week as my episodes go up on my social media. I try to also, not just post teasers. I try to also post, personal stuff on my social media so people can get to know who I am. So I'm actively trying to build my social media presence as well. I have a newsletter, but none of them want to read Kindle Vella because they were with me from ebooks. So I've had to lean into sort of building other ways of driving readers to Vella.
Yeah. Well, one question there, you said like Facebook is your primary thing. Why did you choose Facebook over, I assume Amazon has some means for you to advertise on Amazon. What was your decision there between Facebook and using Amazon or using Twitter ads, that sort of thing?
So Amazon doesn't actually let us run ads for Kindle Vella stories yet. And I think that's a technical thing because just from having been with Vella since the start, I've kind of gotten little glimpses behind the curtain at how it's actually put together. When it first launched into Kindle, when it first launched, it wasn't in Kindle apps even. But once it started in the Kindle app, every episode has its own listing number, and they were showing as individual stories originally in the app before they fixed that glitch to where they stack together. So my guess is that the inside mechanics of how Vella is set up doesn't mesh well with their advertising platform yet. So if you go into Amazon advertising, my Kindle Vella stories show up there, but they're marked ineligible for ads. I'm hoping that they'll one day fix that so that I can also run Amazon ads. But in the meantime, I've leaned into Facebook ads, and because readers have to sign into Amazon to read on Kindle Vella, I use Amazon and Kindle as narrowing targets for the ads I run on Facebook, if that makes sense.
No, you can explain that a little more. What does that mean, use narrowing targets?
So when you set up a Facebook ad, you choose who you're targeting the ad to. So you can choose age brackets, locations. I run only for the US because that's all Vella is open to right now. And I target the age bracket 18 to 45 because I write YA, but a lot of middle-aged women also read YA. And my story has a lot of sweet romance, so I target mostly to readers that I think will want that. And then you can choose interest targets as well. So I have genre targets, authors that I target that I think write comparable kind of things. I target things like speculative fiction, YA fiction, and then, but those all go together into like my targeting, but then it also lets you do 2 layers of narrowing. So essentially you can have your targets and then you can say, and must also match, and you can add narrowing factors. So I use kind of a layered system where I target a bunch of things like TV shows that are comparable to the vibe of my story, whatever I can think of. And then I narrow by people who I know actually read, right? So things like fantasy books, YA fiction, reading, things like that. And then I narrow again, at least on my recent audience, because I'm constantly experimenting and trying to improve and hone. But right now I'm narrowing by another layer that includes Amazon.com specifically, because it's only US, Amazon.com, Kindle store, Kindle app, and other Kindle related things as interests. So I still ended up with a massive target audience of like 20 million or something. But it's eliminating anybody who isn't a reader, theoretically, and it's eliminating anybody who doesn't have an Amazon account and would essentially hit the sign in and just bounce. So that's something that I've learned through experimentation. I was getting a lot of clicks, but they weren't translating to sign-ins. And then I saw someone mention that they narrowed by Amazon, and I was like, of course you do, you know? So it's been a learning experience, but right now my ads are performing really well overall. So I'm just, like I said, continuing to tweak and hone and try to make small improvements. It's like in that 1%, you know, like 1% improvements over time, that kind of thing.
Well, it sounds like an understanding of analytics and how to look at things is a big thing. So a couple of things. One is, what analytics do you look at? Do you look at analytics in Facebook? Does Amazon, if they don't give you the ability to look at ads, do they give you analytics? And before I forget, I just also wanted to say, although you're not letting you do ads on Amazon, they must obviously be promoting their biggest sellers.
Yes.
So they must have a system where they're looking at analytics and who's advancing, and basically do some promotion for that just in their system, regardless of whether the author can do paid ads. So let's talk about some of those things. Let's start with the idea of analytics. It's like, if someone's not a numbers person or a graphs person or whatever, yeah, it sounds like that could be a handicap, that you kind of have to look at what's going on.
Yes, I'm more of a words person than a numbers person, but I still enjoy data. So I like the analytical component of it, but I think I have friends who are less analytical who are still doing well. So they give us a dashboard, and it's limited on what it shows us. It doesn't show, like I said, I like data, so I would like more granularity in what I'm seeing, but I don't have that. So I can see overall how many likes, thumbs up is what they call them, how many thumbs I've had on a story. I can see also how that breaks down to overall thumbs per episode. I can see how many reads, both free reads and unlocks, I've had. And then I can look at that per episode. I can look at that per story. I can also look at that over time, or they have like a calendar where you can break down. I can look at only for today, or I can look at yesterday. So what I do, and it also keeps tracks of your royalties, but the royalties again are like just a small component of how I get paid. The bonuses also appear in the dashboard whenever they appear, but the bonus for March, I won't see until the 20th of April. So there's a delay on, I don't immediately know how well everything I'm doing will translate into a bonus. I have to kind of factor that backwards once I have it. But as I'm going, what I'm watching is my daily reads and unlocks compared to the number of clicks I'm getting on my Facebook ad. I can't, because I'm sending people to an Amazon landing page, I can't embed a pixel tracker. So I can't know from the Facebook end how many of them are actually signing in and reading. So I just compare the numbers between the two dashboards. And I have a ratio in my head of what I know is good for how many are actually signing in to read episode 1 out of that number of clicks. And then I have a ratio in my head for what I know is good for read through from episode 1 on to the next episodes. So that's what I'm watching. And then again, that if something's not working right, then it becomes a troubleshooting issue. So this has been a learning experience for sure. But what I've learned is that you really have to hook the ad clicker, the Facebook user. You have to hook them on multiple levels, because if you hook them and they click, but you've set the wrong expectation, they get to the story and they either bounce immediately or they read episode 1 and bounce, and you don't get paid for episode 1. So the first 3 episodes are free for anyone to read. So it's a low investment for them. But if your episode 1 doesn't hook them, then you have to ask, is it because my episode 1 isn't hooky, or is it because I hooked the wrong reader? So it's been a troubleshooting process, and I've had enough read through to know that my episode 1 is not the problem. So then I had to look at the ads. And I had to figure out, why am I hooking the wrong reader? Is it the image? Is it the ad text? How am I setting the wrong expectation? So it's been a troubleshooting process, and I have found one ad image that consistently works, and I've tried many, many others. There's one that consistently works with a very small variation of text, like basically 3 text options that I use with one image. And then I just experiment with different audiences, because I have tested enough to know what works in terms of setting the right expectation. It's been a process.
Well, that opens up a whole bunch of questions that I can think of. So, so obviously you're getting these analytics and numbers, and you're seeing how different ads work, so you can tweak the ads. But you mentioned that the first 3 episodes are free, and you're hooking them into the first episode. So once you get that first episode in place, you can't use anything you're learning from the analytics to change that episode. Like, that episode's locked, isn't it? It's always going to be episode 1.
I can edit it.
Okay.
So
could you change it significantly because you've now got story that goes way past that. So you can't change it dramatically to help hook people in. So just your thoughts on that.
Technically, like, just in terms of how the platform works, I can go in and change an episode. But as a storyteller, that if I change it too much, I'm just going to make massive amounts of work for myself, because that's going to create a trickle down that I have to then go edit every episode after that. So if I were to change my first episode at this point, it would probably be just to tighten it and make it move a little more quickly. But because it seems to be doing its job to hook the readers I want to hook, I haven't changed my first episode at all, really. I've just learned how to attract the right readers to it, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It still sounds like you want to be, if you're getting into this, you want to be really careful about those first 3 episodes, because they're laying the foundation, and they're going to be the thing that you're pulling readers into.
Yes. So while we're on that topic, one of the things I learned early on from interacting with other Vella authors who were doing well is that all 3 of your first episodes have to have a strong hook, enough to pull them through. And then your 3rd episode has to have a mega hook, because that's the paywall. The first 3 are free, and then they have to decide, do I want to pay for this story? And then we've also learned, because they give out free bonus packages, like token packages to new readers, it's 200 tokens. So each of us, depending on the token cost of our episodes, has a threshold where a reader who's using free tokens will hit, like, they've run out of free tokens and now they have to pay. So I know that for me, that's episode 9, and they have to unlock 10 with their own money if they want to keep going. So I have to make sure that episode 9 has something that's really compelling to push them forward. Not all of that was stuff I knew right up front, but thankfully I build hooks into my episodes anyway. So I just checked back and made sure that it looked like readers weren't consistently leaving at those episodes, and they're not. I tend, I have very intermittent bingers. Like I get a lot of testers who jump in, read the first few episodes, and then seem to leave. And then a few days later, I'll get like somebody pops up at episode 9 and just binges all the way through 100 episodes. Like, so I seem to be hooking the right readers. I'm just not hooking as many of them as I would like to. So I'm continuing to try to build.
Um, in terms of this analytics and understanding things, it sounds like you've definitely put the work into going back and trying to tweak the ads and seeing what works and repeating what works. Do you ever use the analytics, and you had also mentioned the idea of polls, to adjust what's happening in the story? A typical example might be, it looks like you're coming up on a place where a character might die or something, and people love that character too much, so you don't do that, or however. But have you experienced anything like that where you've adjusted where the story is going based on the kind of feedback you're getting from both engagement, analytics, polls?
Yes. So the polls didn't get added until I was already a good way into the story. They weren't a feature when it first launched. But I do occasionally ask in the polls, and I kind of use that feedback to make sure that the readers are responding the way I want them to. So I have an alpha team who reads my stuff before it ever goes. And so usually if I'm making a major change, they catch it because I get their reactions first, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I hardly ever go back and change something, but it informs me for what I want to do moving forward. So I have changed some plans based on either the alpha team's feedback or what I get in polls. If I kind of had 2 options or 3 options that I was trying to decide between, then yeah, I'll run a poll, and then I'll see, and I'll either give the readers what they seem to want, or I'll lean into giving them what they say they don't want, because I know that it's going to make better conflict that is actually in the long run going to keep the readers happier. Sometimes, this is another thing I've learned, is that sometimes readers will tell you the thing that like they don't want anything bad to happen to the characters, so they'll be telling you, no, don't do something. But I always write hopeful endings anyway, so I know it's going to work out okay. So I sometimes lean into taking a hard turn that the readers are like, no. I'm like, it'll be fine, trust me. But yes, so I like to use the polls. I don't get as much interaction on them yet on Vella as I would like, but I have been getting some. So it's interesting to see, and you can go into the dashboard and see the results of the polls on each episode. So I do check those, and I use those to kind of inform as I'm planning the rest of the story.
Okay. One of the things I'd like to talk about is, obviously you're writing, you're reviewing analytics. It's basically you're running a little business is what you're doing. And you're not only the person who does the service, you're the bookkeeper, you're the marketing person. So what kind of personal time, and you had mentioned earlier that you've sort of put just short story submission, for instance, the magazines on the back burner for this. So it sounds like this takes up a fair amount of your time to basically make all this work together. What does that look like?
So I spend at least probably 15-20 minutes a day just tweaking and analyzing my ads. I could probably spend less, but I'm a little compulsive about checking the dashboard. So like altogether, probably like 20 minutes a day, not all in one chunk, but I'll check it and kind of like compare, make sure things are looking okay. If something's not right, I'll make a note to go back and look at my ads and try to figure out what's not working. And in February, I spent a lot more time because I decided to launch a massive test of different audiences. And so I was running like dozens of like very narrowed audience segments and comparing the stats, but I don't do that every month. So February, it was a lot of work. But now that I've got those test results and I've kind of honed my main ads, now I'm back to just letting them run and just kind of peeking in every now and then and making sure that nothing's gone completely crazy. And I have a daily budget set, so at least I know it can't be too bad as long as I'm checking it. And then in terms of the story itself, I try to be a routine writer and write every day, but my life is too crazy for that. So it's kind of hard to estimate how much time, but definitely an average of an hour to a day goes into the planning and writing of the story itself. I'm right now posting 3 episodes a week, so I have to write 3 episodes a week to stay ahead of my posting schedule. Again, I don't always. Sometimes I like binge write 6 to 8 of them because I know I'm going to be busy. But I have to be producing at a level that I'm ahead of my posting schedule. Technically, I could take a hiatus anytime I want, but I don't. My readers are anticipating releases on a schedule, so you run the risk always of losing readers if you interrupt the schedule that they're expecting. So I try to stay on schedule. Yeah, so it's definitely a time investment, which is why I just stepped back from writing other things, time-wise and just brain energy. I'm producing 3 episodes a week, and my episodes average 1,500 to 3,000-ish words. So that's a lot of content that I'm already writing. So I just had to kind of take a step back from other things. But I am enjoying it. And I'm actually nearing the end of this story in terms of writing. And so then I'm going to probably take a little break before I jump into season 2. And I'm planning to write something different to kind of give my brain a break from fantasy, the deep world building of fantasy, because sometimes it's tiring. But yeah, so it's definitely like a business. But I would say maybe total time I invest 10, 15 hours a week on average, which for the money I'm making and the potential to grow into something else, I feel is definitely worth it.
Well, the unspoken story of Crystal is in the boards and stuff behind you, because
yes,
it's quite obvious that you're very organized about what you do. So that's something to think about it going in, is to basically be organized about it and know your work schedule and know what you're doing. Well, this has all been great in terms of the analytics, and how I'd like to end today's episode is just, since you have looked at all these analytics and you have been looking at what you're doing, tell us again about your main story and who loves this story, because those are the particular people we want to get to check it out.
Yes. So my main story is called Macchiatos, Faerie Princes, and Other Things That Happen at Midnight. It is a YA fantasy, and I would recommend it for people who kind of love the vibe of the Mortal Instruments, even something like Twilight. So there's sweet romance, there's love triangles, but there's also this underlying mystery of what's actually happening as she gets pulled into this world that involves fae and magic and Leyguards, who are, I don't want to give too much away, but Leyguards. And so it's really, if you're looking for something where you kind of just get pulled into this secret world that's unfolding in front of you, that's sort of the vibe that it has. Yeah.
Excellent. And everyone, remember that all these links are in the description of the video. You can visit Crystal's stories on Amazon. You can check them out on DreamForge Magazine. You can check them out in some other venues that Crystal's going to send me links to. So, basically check all this stuff out. See if Kindle Vella is for you, both as a writer and as a reader. So we want to see this platform grow. It seems to be very successful, and it seems to be a great place for especially new authors to hone their craft and to get some notice. So again, Crystal, thank you for being here with us today. And I'm going to try to end on a cliffhanger, since that's what we were talking about. So what we're going to try to talk about with Crystal next week is the idea of where is Kindle Vella going, and where is Crystal Crawford going in her career. So next week, let's take a look at the future. How are things going to develop? So we look forward to seeing you again next week, Crystal.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Crystal. You've made everything Vella so understandable for us. We look forward to having you back for our 3rd Vella episode on the future of Kindle Vella. In the meantime, all you viewers who have watched this far, please subscribe so that you don't miss our next episode. Thank you all.